All right. Well, thanks for joining us on our Zoom video. I am speaking with my good friend Mike Ferry, who is with the Mike Ferry organization. Mike's organization is very important to all the people watching today on both sides, on the title insurance side, on the real estate side, because Mike's organization brings cutting edge strategies to real estate agents around the world. In fact, they coach nearly 3,000 real estate professionals on an ongoing basis. Their organization has been around since 1988. Mike, you don't last that long without being good at what you do. Tell us a little bit about you.
Well, the good news is I actually started speaking full-time in 1975. We started the coaching by mistake in 1988 in San Francisco. So we've had a lot of experience. We tried to figure out, Darryl, and you'll get a kick out of this because of your experience. We tried to figure out how many coaching calls we had made in 30 some years, and we determined it was in the millions of coaching calls. So we're very lucky. We have a wonderful client base. We have about 46,000 agents in the US and Canada that we work with. We are very fortunate. We operate in Italy, Belgium, Albania. We operate in Russia. We're overseas. So we've been very fortunate. But I think like your business, like mine, and like a lot of your customers and mine, if you keep providing good quality service, you can retain your customers, because really the truth is a good real estate agent wants to retain that buyer or seller for many decades. And that's, of course, what a good title salesperson wants to do. And of course, what you and I want to do. So I guess as long as we keep doing our job at the level we've done it, you and I are going to be here when we're really old, and I'm already gray. So it's one of those people.
Well, and on the real estate side too, it's not just keeping those customers for a really, really long time, but it's a legacy business too. I mean, it's a
Sure.
generational thing, right? If that agent does their job well, they pick up the next generation right off that same family. So it kind of multi-tiers its way out, right? Kind of a big
I,
Amway
I,
business.
I have to tell you, I had a funny experience last summer at our Superstar retreat when a lady who I'd known all of my adult life walked up with a younger lady, and she said, "This is my daughter, a realtor, and this is my granddaughter, a realtor." And I went, "That makes me really old." That's
Now, Mike, I wasn't planning on asking you this question. I do want to tell everybody, let me tell you why we're here today. A lot of people around the world are nervous about what's going on. A lot of people are really doing well right now, but a lot are struggling to find the opportunity that's really kind of right in front of them. And Mike, being the specialist that he is and the side of the business that we work on, we just felt like it would be a good idea. We talked a couple weeks about this ago, Mike. Be a good idea for us just to visit on our strategies and philosophies about where the opportunities are right now and take the edge off for some people and offer some direction. But Mike, before we get into this, your accidental start to your coaching business.
oh yes.
Yeah, I believe I know the story, but just so I don't get it wrong, would you do me a favor and just tell that real quick?
The wonderful hotel at the top of Nob Hill in San Francisco, and I can't think of the name of it at this moment, but a beautiful facility. I've got 400 people for a 4-day event, and in San Francisco, they're very much used to selling high cost, expensive homes, and it was a very elite crowd. On day number 2, Darryl, I could tell there was no connection between myself and this audience. I mean, they were looking at me like I had 11 heads, and I was looking at them like they didn't have one. So it wasn't a good connection. At one point, I said at the end of the second day, "I've got a great idea. I think every one of you should write me a check for $5,000. And if you give it to me tomorrow, starting next week, I'll call you once a week, and I'm going to tell you exactly what to say, exactly what to do to build your business to a higher level." And I said, "But I know not one of you would have the courage to do it. See you tomorrow." And I walked off the stage. Next morning, I walk in. There's 300 business cards stacked in the corner of the stage. So I said to somebody, "What are these cards?" And they said, "Well, these are the people that want to pay you $5,000 for calling us once a week." And that's how the coaching started. I took first 50 that I pulled out of the stack, and they all paid me on the spot. I mean, they're going, "See, $5,000 times 50 people. Hello, this works." Well,
Yes.
then I had to hire a coach, and I hired a guy named Tim Wood to help me with that stack. And then I hired Bob McKinnon to help me with that stack. Then I hired my son Matt to help me with that stack. And it's been nothing but fun, excitement, and a lot of productivity ever since. So we started by mistake, and now it's a very purposeful business.
Yeah.
So how did you start?
Very close to the same thing. It's kind of funny. I'm listening to you tell the story. I was speaking around the country doing live events in the title industry, and I can remember I had a guy ask me. He said, "You want to come to New Orleans and keynote the National Title Marketing Conference?" It was like 1995. We started in '94 speaking and doing training, but as far as coaching goes, I think it was '95 or '96, somewhere in there. And he said, "Your business will be nationwide in a day if you'll come speak at this conference." So I went and I spoke, and sure enough, a lot of people around the country wanted us to work with them, but we just said to them, "Look, here's the thing: anybody can provide information. What you need is support and implementation, right?" And so we just basically made an offer. We'll work with you to help you, but what we want to do, and this is how we actually started, we want to actually make calls with your salespeople and teach them on the job.
That's smart.
Right? And so we have to be able to call the shots on this, because I know what most of them would want us to do: come in quarterly and do a class, right? But you know as well as I do that without accountability, without structure, those classes don't turn into much unless somebody they already have the drive to make it happen, right? We knew that in order for this to work, we were going to have to help these people on an ongoing basis, and so that's kind of how we got started.
Sure.
And now we've done this. We've helped over 1,000 title companies, Mike. I don't know if you know that number across the country. We've trained about 6,000 title salespeople, 65,000 coaching sessions that since we started counting them, 75,000 ride-alongs. It's just remarkable. But that small beginning, I remember the first person that I hired as a coach besides myself, and honestly, it was scary. Okay, because I know what I tell people, I know what my process was, but as soon as you do a one-off, you're very nervous about it. But at the same time, you realize that if your company is ever going to be anything substantial for the marketplace, you have to do those, because there's no way you and I are going to be able to service all the needs that people have. And so, so we've kind of started the same way, and it's been really awesome. And the key, I think, is understanding that for the record, Mike and I had a little conversation before we hit the live record button here about accountability and about encouragement, right? We talked about encouragement, and the word encourage simply means to add courage, right? And so most people are not afraid of what they would receive for being successful. What they're afraid of are some of the steps to become successful at what they're trying to do. And they really fear, it's really interesting, they fear being found out that they don't already know how to do something. And so they're reluctant to admit certain things. And so all along the way, we just operate around the premise that 19 out of 20 people are not going to freely admit their deficiencies. That's where on the coaching side, you have to have rapport, as you know. You have to have a relationship. That guard has to come down, because for that person to go to the next level, they have to be willing to open up. And so
I'm going to share a thought with you. A couple of months ago, and this happens to people like you and I, as it does to all the top title salespeople and top real estate people. I had a phone call from a young man that said, I'm going to ask you a question, and if you refuse me, I understand. I said, go ahead. He said, I want to start a speaking and coaching company in my future, and I'd like advice, and I'll pay for the advice. I said, well, I got a lot of advice for free, so I won't charge you. How can I help? He said, what is the first step I have to take? And I said to him, okay, are you a successful real estate agent? He said, yes. Do you have a specific plan you follow day in and day out to get to the result of a listing and sale? He said, yes. Is it duplicatable? He goes, well, I don't know. I said, well, are you buying your leads, for example, from Zillow? He said, yes. I said, well, then it's not duplicatable. I said, are you involved in activities like billboards and putting your name in a shopping cart? He goes, well, all the time. I said, then it's not duplicatable. He said, well, how did you build your business? I said, I have a step-by-step process I teach an agent the way you teach a title salesperson. He said to me after about a half an hour, I think I'm just going to do more deals in real estate. It sounds like a lot more. But see, what you and I deal with every day is that question mark of what do they have to do to succeed?
Right.
So your system, because I got to sit in the back of the room last summer down in San Diego and watch you do a presentation before I got up to speak following you. And what I said to my wife, Sabrina, is I said, Darryl and Mike are twins, but we didn't know it because we're preaching a duplicatable system, in my case, for a real estate agent to follow.
Yes.
And you're teaching a duplicatable system. And that's really, if we could ever get that thought into the agent's mind, that will give them the confidence to do the job, to do the deals they have to do.
Right. What you can't replicate, you can't scale.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's a high paying job for an agent who wants
Yeah.
to be a coach. They have to be able to duplicate exactly what you just said. Well, one of the reasons that we're doing this today, Mike, is the fear of this COVID-19 um,
Yes.
virus that's floating around, and we're all following the rules. We're all running our business differently. However, I'm going to tell you that I know that you have been working with people. Your organization has been working with people to work more using technology anyway, just like we've been with our people.
Yeah.
What we didn't realize is that the 100% need for immediate adoption of everything we teach was going to happen in a finger
Yeah.
snap. But our people are ready, and they're really doing a great job of that. But I did want to ask you, in the midst of everything, I have a few questions here. I know I've sent you in advance, but I did want to ask you, of the people that are producing right now, the agents that are producing right now, in spite of everything that's going on, what are they doing?
I think the most important thing is, and most of our agents, like most of yours, are now homeward bound, and that wasn't the plan we had in January 1st when they wrote their business plans. So what I'm saying to agents that are producing at the same level the first part of April that they were producing the first part of March, which is a different world. I mean, from March 7th to April 7th, the world changed dramatically. I mean,
Right.
not a little bit, dramatically. So what I'm telling them is whatever schedule you followed working out of an office, if you can follow that schedule working out of your home, you're going to win. Are you doing your daily role play and practice? Are you doing your affirmations? Are you doing, most importantly, your prospecting for 2 to 3 hours to your database, your past clients, etc.? Are you doing your lead follow-up? Are you aggressively calling the people that have the desire to do something now? Are you pre-qualifying all the buyers and sellers? And that's where what the mortgage company comes into play. So many people in play in that pre-qualifying. Have you perfected your listing presentation? Are you an expert at virtually showing a home? Can you handle objections? And they sit there and they go, I have to do the same thing now I did on March 7th. I said, correct.
Right.
But now you're doing it by yourself. You don't have the luxury of a lot of agents and a good broker manager and the support of a sign out in front. Now it's Mike and Darryl in their home office performing. And the difference between the haves and have-nots is the ability to perform without having that environment you had in the past, which means discipline is the name of the game. So what we're saying is, if you do the same thing now that you did a month ago, you're going to succeed with the 90% of the same level of productivity. And they are.
Yes, it's really interesting it's really interesting you talk about prospecting 2 to 3 hours a day. We have a formula on the title side that we share with companies. It's 50-50, 65-35. 50% of their time should be with past or existing clients as far as their focus. 50% of their time should be prospecting. Okay.
Good.
And of that, the 65% should be weighted toward where the business actually is right now. Right.
Good.
And 35% is bridge opportunity. So maybe you're working with somebody that may not happen today, it may happen in 30 days or 45 days. But the 65% is what can they get today? Like what's the opportunity out there now? And when you break down, you take all the admin stuff out, we're basically saying the same thing, prospect 2 to 3 hours a day. In fact, a funny story, and I don't know if I shared this with you when we were down in San Diego, but and I'll tell you the name of the individual offline because I'm not sure if you want this story out. But I was in a real estate office in the San Francisco Bay Area a number of years ago, maybe 20 years ago or so, and we walked in. I was with a rep, and we walked in a real estate office, and we were looking for the broker who was also an active agent. He was doing about, I think it was June. He had already done 78 sides, I think, by June or something. He was on your system, right? And his blinds were closed in his office. So we walked up and asked his assistant if he was in. And she said, yeah, but you don't want to talk to him today. And I said, what do you mean we don't want to talk to him today? She goes, no, trust me, you don't want to talk to him today. And so I look over and I look at his office and I look back and I said, you're really going to need to explain. And she said, well, look over on that chair over there. And I said, yeah, there was a pair of pants on the chair. And I said, okay. And she said, and she gave his name. He opened up his office. He closed his blinds. He opened up his office door and he said, I'm not motivated today. I'm not inspired to make my calls, but I have 3 hours of prospecting calls I need to make. And he hands his pants out the door and he says, so here are my pants. And when I tell you that I have made all my calls, you have my permission to give my pants back to me. Okay. And when we're offline, I'll tell you who that was. You'll know exactly who it was. Of all the thousands of people you'll know who this one is. So, but that's really what it boils down to. The marketplace has developed a stigma that right now it's not okay to prospect, which is 100% misleading. It's how we prospect. It's prospecting with sensitivity to what's going on. But there are still people who need to buy. There are still people who need to sell. Heck, there are people who want to buy and sell who will figure out how to do it in this environment. And the good agents will be the ones that capture it, and the good title reps will be the ones that capture those opportunities. So really, it boils down to how do we become not softer, but sympathetic, empathetic, I guess, to where people are while we're still effective. Our whole tagline right now is effective, not aggressive. We're responsible to be effective every day, right? But we don't have to be aggressive. We don't have to make it rough on people, but we do need to be effective. So, based on all of that, I want to ask you a question that a number of people have asked me in regard to our conversation today. What do you see for the future, Mike?
Well, I see once we get through this initial problem we're dealing with, and that could be in 2 weeks, could be a month, could be 60 days from now, I see a huge backlog of buyers and sellers that are simply saying to agents every day today, Darryl, they're saying, yes, we do want to do something. We want to wait until this ends. And we don't know that date, but it can't be too far off because as you and I said earlier, my son Matthew keeps saying this too shall pass, and it will. There's no question about it. So I see the future of the agents that are doing their job today having an explosion in 30, 60, 90 days, because if they're keeping up the relationships, if they're empathetic, sympathetic, if they're having conversations, how is the family, how is the health, is everything okay, any questions I can answer for you, can I do anything to calm your nerves down so you can see what's going on in the market, can I share with you market stats, market neighborhood reports. 60, 90 days from now, when that flood door opens up, the good agents are going to be overwhelmed with good business. The sad part is the agents that are not following what you and I teach, they're going to be lost in 60, 90 days because they're not doing the job today. And I agree with you 100%. All of our key brokers, we work with about 331 real estate companies and, as I said, 45,000 agents. Anybody that's working is doing just fine in this market, even though there's a lot of concern and a lot of fear. So if they follow the rules and they follow the game, and if they follow the game plan, it's going to be even better in 90 days or 45 or 120. So I'm excited about the future. And here's the best part, Darryl. What you and I are doing right now, this is going to be the mode of operation for real estate and title and mortgage in the future. It's going to be done virtually, and they're going to save hours of time, which is make them much more efficient. So I'm excited about the efficiency that agents are going to experience.
I think they're going to find out. Yeah, they're also going to find out on the title side as well what they really didn't need to be doing. All of the things that they were involved in that they felt like they needed to be doing, they're going to find out what they no longer need to be doing, right? So in other words, they're going to find their efficiency points. They're not going to just be running around and trying to meet with people without objectivity. They're going to look back and say, hey, I was successful without all this noise. And how do I move forward? It's interesting. I put out a post last night on Title Reps Only on Facebook, David Bravo Jr.'s group that he has down there, David. And I just put the post. It was a really simple question. If you found out it was always going to be the way it is now, in other words, this is our new future, right? Which it's not, but if you found out it was, what would you do immediately to start generating profit, revenue, and growth for your organization right now today? Sure. Because those who wait for a circumstance to end will fail at this thing we call business, right? Oh, absolutely. And there's a lot of people, and that's one of the reasons why I thought it'd be a really good idea if you and I hopped on this. We need to talk to not only the people who are willing to thrive, but the people who are struggling right now, the people who who get discouraged. Like one of the questions that I got, which kind of ties into what you just said, you know, what would you recommend a title rep do to stay with those people who are working right now, but some of those leads are becoming delayed, which was one of the questions that you and I dialogued on. Some of those leads are delayed 30, 60 days before they'll do something. What advice would you give a title company or a title rep right now to stay engaged with those agents, and what could the rep do to best serve them?
Well, you and I both know that one of the advantages of a good title insurance salesperson is the information they can bring to the table for the agent to use, whether it be showing property on comps, the phone numbers of people to contact, the information on a listing presentation. So I would say if I was a title salesperson today, I would be saying to all my best customers, let's go through your leads. Let's see which are right now, and let's see which are 30, 60, 90 days. And let's see what information that I can furnish for you that you can give to those buyers and sellers to reassure them that you are the local neighborhood expert. So I see that Bob Neville was a fellow that started Equity Title back years and years ago. And he was one of my mentors all my life. He just, unfortunately, just passed away a few weeks ago. And we lost a great one when we lost Bob in his 80s. But Bob said to me all the time, because I was a title salesperson at age 19, 20, 21, 22. And Bob said to me all the time, if we keep bringing value to those real estate agents, and that value can provide them with information to do a better job, you're going to be like this with them forever. So I think today the title companies have enormous amounts of resources of valuable information. So if you were the agent and I was the title salesperson, I'd be saying, Darryl, let's look at your leads carefully. Okay, let's see who are buyers, who are sellers, and what information can we provide. I think it's a natural for your good salespeople to flourish at a higher level in this market today. I'm excited for it.
I would totally agree. And you made a comment a few minutes ago about the demand that's going to be present. And the first, we're not, as a nation, we're not gonna. My assumption anyway. I'm not an authority in this, but I don't see us opening up with a flip of a switch. I see the country opening back up like a dimmer switch on a light. Kind of went back first to 10 people in a room, whatever, 6 feet apart, social distancing. Who knows? Maybe mask, whatever. It'll come back little by little. But as soon as the real estate community is able to actively engage across the country or most markets in showing property and taking listings, even though they can do it now. I know lots of agents who are in high stress shelter in place orders, and they're making a great living right now because they're still working, right? They're still following the disciplines and prospecting. But on the backside of this, it begins to open up. Personally, I see that we're going to be solving more than one problem. Well, I would tell you that I completely agree that we're going to see some pent up demand that floods the marketplace. But another thing I think we're going to see, I mean, the big concern over the last 3 years, I'm about 3 years, maybe a little bit longer actually, is inventory. Everybody says there's not enough inventory. And I remember I heard you speak at the same event I was speaking at. And, somewhere along the way, agents have felt like they don't need to prospect for inventory any longer. And so when this comes back, we're going to have the inventory for, let's say, for example, let's say that we're kind of going back to normal in May, right? In April, whatever doesn't hit the market, 95% is going to hit the market in May, on top of what would have already hit the market in May. So we're literally going to have an increase in inventory for a short span. Do you agree with that philosophy?
No question. I think we're going to see an influx of inventory, and we're going to see it being dispersed over probably 3 to 4 months quite quickly. Because, as you said, the biggest challenge we have faced really for probably 2.5, 3 years is an inventory problem, especially in real strong markets like California, Nevada, Arizona, the Sunshine States, Florida, going up to East Coast. So I think that the thought process every agent should have is, I need to accumulate the best qualified, motivated leads of potential sellers for now and for the future.
And the title reps need to be prospecting those individuals as well. I mean, they need to be doing exactly the same thing. And one more thing that I see happening is, as those additional listings come about, the pent up demand rolls into the next couple months, there's people who have wanted to sell their home, but couldn't find one to buy, so didn't put it on the market. Now they're going to see that there's inventory to buy, and we're going to have some of those come on top. So, we longed for an inventory solution. I think we're finding it, not the way we wanted to, but I think
Yeah.
we're finding it. Let me ask you this: how do you stay positive? If you could give advice to the viewers of this Zoom meeting right now on maintaining the right mindset. I mean, you've always been very mentally disciplined, Mike. And what advice would you give them on maintaining a positive attitude and keeping their scope, maintaining what they're supposed to be looking at?
Well, practice role play, practice role play, practice role play in front of a camera, because it would be virtual in the future. But that's always been critical. But see, I've been telling people, Darryl, for probably 40 years, I take 3 or 4 15-minute mindset breaks every day. I've done this all my life. Repeat the affirmations. I still use affirmations every day. I still read all the time. My wife says, do you do anything besides read? I said, yeah, hang out with you, which is fun. So, 3 or 4 times a day, I'll read 3 or 4 pages of a good book. There's thousands of inspirational videos on YouTube. The Darryl Hardy, the Brian Tracy's, the Tony, all these great people that have messages. And if anybody would commit to 3 or 4 times a day, spending 15 minutes, but then also stop watching the news today.
Right.
Stop playing with social media, because most social media is simply personal opinions that have no facts behind them. So if we stop watching the news and we stop the social media and we're inputting good thoughts, it isn't going to happen tomorrow, but within virtually a short time, anybody can strengthen that mindset, because there is more doubt today, not that we would have personally, that's being pushed at us by the public and by the news. So it's a matter of a choice. And as one of the great books written, probably now by one of the editors of Success Magazine 50 years ago, was called The Power of Choice. And I still refer to the fact that is something that everybody does every morning. They have a choice as to how they're going to think, how they're going to behave, how they're going to act, and what they're going to do. And you and I are hopefully always going to be the filter they use to make sure it's the right choice.
Yeah.
So I'm excited about the time we've had together.
Yeah, myself as well. A couple things here, and then we can work towards wrapping this up. But I've always said, everybody knows the term garbage in, garbage out, right?
Yes.
My philosophy is that's a lie. Garbage in, most never gets out. So when we watch the news, it gets in and it doesn't easily come out, right? And I just put a video out this week, in fact, on how to reduce fear. And there was really 2 things that I put on that video. Maybe this will help some of your clients as well. Number one is to realize that fear must be induced. Yes. Fear does not exist if it's not induced. And so if we're afraid of something, we have to ask ourselves, what influence did we allow in to induce that fear? What sure. Is it looking at everybody's opinion on social media? Is it watching the news? Whatever it is. But fear doesn't exist unless it's induced. So we have to really guard what we let in. But the second thing, and this was, I have to give Raquel a great credit on this. She talked to me one day about what you can and can't control. Now we all know that. That's pretty simple, right? And I began to think about it. And my advice I gave in the video that I just put out this week is actually take 2 pieces of paper and actually make 2 lists. And on one list is what you can control. And on the other list is what you can't control. Because if you don't have 2 lists, in your mind, it becomes one, right?
Yes.
And it becomes intertwined. And the difference between what we can and can't control now is actually muddied up. And it all starts looking the same. And that's where stress and anxiety comes from. And so on that video, I made the recommendation, make 2 lists. And if you're stressed, find out what you're stressed about, look on the list. List A is what you can control. List B is what you can't control. And if it's on list B, you have to let it go, right? And I can't tell you how much feedback, it's amazing to see how a simple video like that helps people around the world. And I'll send you a copy of the video when we're done here. Mike, I appreciate your time. Is there anything that you want to share before we wrap up? And I'm going to guess you have 2 or 3 more of these today. I have one more for sure. But is there anything that you would like to share before we go our separate ways today?
Well, I think most importantly is that I hope that a lot of people get to listen to and watch what we've done today, because it doesn't take a lot of thoughts to change a person's life forever. Earl Nightingale said, one good positive thought once in a while can change a person's life forever. And I have to tell you, Darryl, based on what you've said and what I've tried to share, if they can't find one good thought on this one, it's too late. Okay. So I would say to you, they should watch this a couple times with their notepad in front of them, take some good notes, and then as they can see, Darryl Turner Corporation, they can go online, look up what you're doing for those in the title and mortgage side, and for the real estate people, it's just MikeFerry.com. So I want to say thank you for bringing this together, and thanks for the idea. And I'm really glad we spent some time together, and hopefully it'll help not only all my real estate friends, but all your title insurance friends also. So thank you for today.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. I appreciate the friendship. And do you have a contact email that you'd like to put on here for people if they had any questions for you?
It's really complicated. Mike.ferry@MikeFerry.com. The reason I have it that way because I'm old and I can't remember, so I just use my name twice.
Well, you're going to like the one I'm going to give. Mine is Darryl, Darryl.Turner@DarrylTurner.com. So yeah, that's my easier one to give you, and it forwards to my main corporate account. So if anybody watching today has any input, any thoughts, any ideas, any questions that you'd like to ask Mike or myself, we encourage you to send those over, to ask us as soon as you possibly can. And remember, I mean, the future belongs to those who are brave enough to create it, right? And so we have to be bold right now. We have to be brave. We have to do the things we know we need to do. And if you're feeling down, reach out to us. If you're feeling down, reach out to a peer. And you know, iron sharpens iron. So let's get to work sharpening each other. And let's make 2020, Mike, the absolute best year we ever could imagine, in spite of everything that might be going on. Fair enough?
I'm with you 100%. Thank you.
Mike, thank you very much. You have a great day, and I will talk to you very soon.